80 Days, adventurer and award-winning filmmaker Paul G. Roberts retraces the global footsteps of Phileas Fogg, hero of Jules Verne's most famous work.
This is day 47, the history of Hanoi and Vietnam for 80 days. It's a serene, sweeping image is Hanoi's skyline. The sun casts a golden glow over the city's ancient architecture and modern buildings. Hanoi is the capital of Vietnam, a country located in Southeast Asia. And the city has a rich history that spans over 1,000 years, and it's been through many ups and downs over the centuries. I get my drone gliding over the lush verdant fields of the Red River Delta, the cradle of Vietnamese civilization, as we transition back in time. The earliest known inhabitants of what is now known as Vietnam were the Dong Son people, who lived in the Red River Delta region around 1000 BC. Artisans dressed in traditional Dong Son attire are seen working bronze into intricate drums, the rhythmic hammering echoing softly. They were skilled metalworkers and created intricate bronze drums, which were used in religious ceremonies and as musical instruments. Over time, the Dong Son people were replaced by other groups, including the Chinese, who conquered the region in the 2nd century BC. Hanoi has many historical landmarks, from ancient temples to the bustling streets of the Old Quarter, and the city hustles about its day. For the next 1,000 years, Vietnam was ruled by a series of Chinese dynasties, although the Vietnamese people maintained their own customs and culture. Flying a drone high over the remnants of Houalou, the ancient capital, with its majestic mountains, are of deep historical significance. In the 10th century, the Vietnamese people rose up against the Chinese rule and established their own independent state, known as Dai Co Viet. Tai Long, the area of modern-day Hanoi, shows the evolution from ancient times to the bustling city it is now. The first capital of Dai Co Viet was located in modern-day Ninh Binh province, but it was later moved to other locations including Houalou and Thang Long, which is now Hanoi. Flying a drone over the ancient temple complex, the intricate roofs and ornate decorations reflect the architectural achievements of the Lai dynasty. In the 11th century, Thang Long became the capital of Dai Co Viet under Lai dynasty. And during this time, the city grew in size and importance, becoming a major centre of trade and culture in Southeast Asia. The drone sees lush green rice paddies, carved terraces that shimmer with reflections of the sky. The Lai dynasty also made significant advances in agriculture, developing new rice cultivation techniques and the building of irrigation systems to improve crop yields. One can look at the iconic one-pillar pagoda in Hanoi, the sun casting a gentle light on a lotus-shaped base and wooden structure. They built many temples and pagodas, including the famous one-pillar pagoda, which is still standing in Hanoi today. Weaving through the bustling streets of Hanoi's old quarter, you capture the vibrancy and the dynamic energy of the city. In the 13th century, the Tran dynasty took power in Vietnam, and Thang Long continued to grow in importance as the capital city. When one looks at the historic gates of Hanoi, remnants of the city's ancient fortifications, as people pass by going about their daily lives, you can't help but get a sense of history. During this time, the city was fortified with walls and gates, and many new public buildings were constructed. And wherever you go in Hanoi, one cannot miss the grandeur of the French colonial buildings, a stark contrast to the ancient Vietnamese architecture. In the 19th century, Vietnam came under the control of the French colonial empire. Hanoi became the administrative centre of French Indochina, and the city was extensively renovated and modernised. One looks at a majestic shot of the Hanoi Opera House with the various people milling around. You can see the European-influenced architecture, symbolising the cultural fusion of the period. Those shifty French built many new buildings and infrastructure projects, not just the Opera House. They built the Presidential Palace and many public parks and gardens. And it was probably around that time that banh mi started to happen as the French started moving their culture in the way of baguettes and brie. One harking back to the Vietnamese countryside during the 1940s, with the voice of Ho Chi Minh echoing faintly in the background, signifies the call for independence. However, the French colonial period was was not an easy one. It was marked by resistance and rebellion, and many Vietnamese people wanted to fight for their independence. The historic moment when Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam's independence, the crowd filled the streets with hopeful faces. And in 1945, a group of Vietnamese nationals led by Ho Chi Minh declared their independence from France and Hanoi. And Hanoi became the capital of a new democratic republic of Vietnam. The war was particularly horrific for the locals, and one needs to study the archive showing moments from the Vietnamese War, including peace rallies, military parades and aerial bombings. The following years were marked by conflict and war, with Vietnam becoming a battleground between communist and anti-communist forces. The Vietnam War, which lasted from 1955 to 1975, was a particularly devastating period for Vietnamese history. Today, life goes on with a new sense of peace and prosperity. However, in 1975, after years of conflict, the communist forces of North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh, finally defeated the South Vietnamese government, and Vietnam was reunified under a socialist government. After the war, Hanoi and Vietnam faced many challenges as they tried to rebuild and recover from the devastation of the conflict. I heard it was said that there were millions and millions of tons of bombs dropped on Vietnam by the Americans. The economy was in shambles and the government faced political and social challenges.
These conflicts have taken their toll, yet the Vietnamese, for the first time in 4,000 years of their history, can look beyond one generation and assume peace and prosperity. They see that. It's real.
But the party is an anachronism. It's in many ways the past ruling the future.
The party has changed. There is debate within the party about which direction this country should go. Major debate.
Civilian mistreatment did not end with the Vietnam War, as many South Vietnamese citizens were sent to re-education camps by the victorious Northerners. There, they were forced to perform hard labor while in the grips of starvation and disease.
But not all outside influences are good. Rates of drug addiction, prostitution, and HIV infection are all soaring. And as youth is more exposed to the West, some behaviour unusual in Vietnam is becoming more common. The young are now expressing their frustration in civil disturbances. It is not so much opposition to communism, but an attraction to consumerism and all that goes with it that is the driving force.
Cut forward to today, Vietnam is really a modern miracle. The rapid development and modernisation with new buildings and infrastructures emerging alongside the historical sites. The government initiated a series of economic reforms in the 1980s which aimed to transition the country from a centralised socialist economy to a more market-orientated capitalist one. And these reforms were known as the Doi Moi, headed by the significant economic growth and development in Vietnam. When one looks at Hanoi's skyline today, You see the juxtaposition of ancient landmarks with modern skyscrapers. It's a remarkable view. Hanoi also underwent significant changes during this period. The city continued to grow and modernise with new buildings, infrastructure and public spaces. However, Hanoi also faced significant environmental and urban planning challenges as rapid development put pressure on the city's resources and infrastructure.
The reforms of 1986 onwards cannot be understated, initially in agriculture and then spreading throughout the rest of the economy and society at large. It would be an oversimplification to say that Vietnam's success has been built on an exodus from China, without mentioning what has made the nation so appealing, which includes its commitment to free trade, investment in human capital, and an emerging middle class.
One only needs to look at the vibrant nightlife of the Old Quarter with the street food vendors and locals mingling. The area is illuminated with the warm glow of lanterns and streetlights. It's quite a sight. In recent years, Hanoi has continued to evolve and develop. The city's become a major centre for technology and innovation, with many startups and tech companies setting up shop in the city. Hanoi has also become a major tourist destination, with millions of visitors coming to the city each year to experience its rich history, culture and cuisines. Patrons can enjoy traditional Vietnamese coffee at bustling street cafes, where you can rub shoulders with a diverse clientele, from young tech entrepreneurs to tourists. Today, Hanoi is a vibrant and bustling city with a mix of old and new, traditional and modern. Historic city centre, including the Old Quarter, is a fascinating maze of narrow streets and alleys filled with shops and markets and pagodas. Hanoi's French colonial heritage is also evident in many of the buildings and public spaces, including the aforementioned Opera House and Presidential Palace. And Hanoi's French colonial heritage is also evident in many of its buildings and public spaces. Its parks and its gardens, as well as the city skyscrapers and modern shopping malls and high-end restaurants and cafes. The city's technology sector is booming, with many startups and tech companies taking advantage of Hanoi's talented workforce and in entrepreneurial Vietnamese spirit. It's a remarkable country, a remarkable city is Hanoi. From the scenic landscapes, from the mountains of Sapa to the beaches of Da Nang, there's an incredible diversity of natural beauty. And beyond Hanoi, Vietnam is also a country with a rich and varied history and culture. It's home to many different ethnic groups, each with their own unique traditions and customs. It's known for its incredible, beautiful natural landscapes, including beaches, mountains, rice paddies. A colourful and busy Vietnamese market is something to behold. And the variety of goods being sold, from exotic fruits and handcrafted textiles, is stunning. And in recent years, Vietnam's become a major power player in the global economy, with a rapidly growing middle class and a thriving manufacturing sector. The country's also become a popular tourist destination, with millions of visitors coming to explore its many attractions each year. And looking into the future, Hanoi and Vietnam face many challenges, but also there's many opportunities. The country's economy is still developing, and there are many social and political issues that need to be addressed. However, with its rich history, its culture, its natural beauty and spirit, Hanoi and Vietnam are well positioned to grow and thrive in the many years to come.